Why should you consider therapy? Hello, I'm Rodger Duckworth, and for the last 30 years, I've helped people, often at the edge of despair, not only manage but overcome their chronic pain and chronic complex health conditions. Why should you consider therapy, or why might you consider therapy? What is therapy? Of course, my background is as a physical therapist, but really anybody that's coming to see me should not consider coming to see me for physiotherapy. They will see someone who has that as a background amongst other disciplines: acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, body psychotherapy, all sorts of different things. So yes, I'm a practitioner. I'm not talking about physical therapy and why you should consider that form of therapy. What I'm talking about is this broader body-mind therapeutic process. I'm not knocking talk therapy alone. It has great value. And in fact, in the somatic world and somatic experiencing world, of which I also inhabit, it's often seen that the narrative is not important. And that actually what's happening from underneath in the nervous system and the physiology is what we want to be working on. And that is very true if we're dealing with trauma per se, because that so often happens in brainstem and puts us into survival physiology. So yes, I understand that, but very often I find that there is a cognitive process. We are thinking, feeling, logical, rational human beings. And so there is some value in a top-down processing as well. And so I combine bottom-up and top-down. So I think it's important that we just consider the mind, the body, the heart, all of it. A therapeutic process, is a journey of exploration, often, of understanding ourselves. We're not there to do to people, but to do with, as opposed to a lot of conventional medicine where we are doing things to a person, and that may be valid if we're fighting for our lives. But if we're in a therapeutic alliance and a therapeutic journey, then what we are doing is we are helping, and we're in an alliance to explore patterns that have developed in our unconscious physiology, in our thought processes, which we might benefit from shifting somehow if it's creating problems. So what would be the benefits of going through a therapeutic process? Now, I can speak with personal experience here as well as professional experience of having been through a great deal of therapy over the last, 20 years probably, of varying kinds. And it's the best thing that I've ever done is to go into exploring myself. I had to do it for my own healing from a chronic autoimmune problem, which I no longer have. I had to understand, yes, early developmental patterns, relational pieces that then played out in my own marriage and relationships. I had to look at patterns of activation and triggering. I had to look at bracing patterns in my body, why my immune system was inflaming itself. And in order to do that, I had to look at the therapy process of my nervous system and of my connective tissue fascial system. I did a lot of that on my own because there wasn't so much work out there 20 plus years ago. But to do that on your own is nigh on impossible. And there's been a lot that I can't do on my own. We can't just always see the things that are there until someone sort of sits as a mirror and helps us compassionately to explore that. There is also something about the energy of being with another person in a non-judgmental, safe space that allows our being, our nervous system, our human existence to feel safe enough to explore those things which may be impossible to speak about, even with loved ones and trusted ones. That trusted ones, loved ones, can be amazing support for us, but there are always pieces that we either because of shame or because of vulnerabilities or a fear of judgment or transferential dynamics that have come from our early years that inevitably exist within our own intimate relationships and personal relationships. To be able to strip that off and have this neutrality of a therapist is really powerful. Why is therapy? Why should you consider therapy? Why might you consider it? What might be going on for you? Well, if you've got chronic, complex health issues, I think that is a very good reason in itself. There could be relationship challenges that you're experiencing. It might be that you're suffering chronic pain. So all of those things will entwine. Yeah, and if you watch many of my other videos, particularly things like the PNIE system, which links the psychological system, the unconscious nervous system, our immune system and inflammatory system, and our endocrine and hormone system. When we start to see the body in systems thinking and not reductionist thinking, then I think that we really see the necessity of a good, skilled, broad spectrum practitioner and therapist that is able to work with how our psychological system may be entwined with our hormonal system, which may also be entwined with chronic inflammatory pathology. I don't think that we can really effectively deal with these complex problems and issues unless we are skilled in many things and consider the whole system. Typically, when people think about therapy, they'll often think, therapy, no, waste of time, I'm sitting there talking about things. It's all in the past and, well, you've just got to get over it and so on. And that's a really common problem. And sometimes, that may just be a defense strategy that we have because we don't want to go through that. We realize that process may bring us in contact with some difficult feelings and thoughts and experiences. And our unconscious being will steer us away from that. And I also do think that there is something about not dwelling upon. There's a big difference between something where we may need to use cognitive processing that just goes, at some point we have to drop that. And actually, if that's a cognitive level processing and mental loop that we're going through, we can do things with that. And that has been an important part of my journey, for sure. However, when I fell foul to that kind of unhealthy positive thought, and I'm very aware of all of the positive thoughts that can have on our physiology, on our heart rhythms, all of those things, and positive journaling and gratitude, yes, I'm aware of all of that. But that falls down and is limited, let's say, when there are unconscious nervous system processes taking place. Because, and the classic is you can't think your way out of hitting the deck if you hear a car backfire, if you are an unfortunate survivor or a war veteran. They will fully understand cognitively that they may be safe here in the UK where there is no war taking place. But that doesn't stop their body reacting as if it is. And there is no amount of gratitude journaling, no amount of rethinking, reframing, cognitive behavioural process therapy that will make the slightest bit of difference to that person's responses in that moment. To anybody that might be questioning the therapeutic process, I think this is why it's important to say, well, what is therapy? And it's not just about talking. It may be about that. That may be an important part of it, but it may not be. And when we think that we can just reframe something, I'm afraid, you're wrong, because you can't always do that.